Short WebBot update. He's doing these things that they call the immediacy data reports, or IDR reports. They're short and sweet. I'm gonna make it even shorter and sweeter because as I'm hearing him talk about it, I'm just taking notes of the things. I'll just shorten it up for you on. Silver, gold, Bitcoin, they're pretty much together in this following statement. Around June or so, mid-June possibly, those items versus US dollar in a cage match, so to speak. Darkness or oppression for those items, silver, gold, Bitcoin, as the dollar is pumped up, starting like right around now until that time frame. By the time we get around to the second week of June or so, Forex traders, dollar traders, etc., anything dollar related trading are kind of like in wait mode. Where's it going? What's going to happen? Is it going to keep going up? Is it, watching it to see if it's on the deathbed or not? What's happening with the dollar? Negative period for gold and silver and Bitcoin over the next 30 days or so. But that will have shifted around mid-June. They may not crash, but they won't really, they may just be flat. Not really going to move too much. There should be a story, says, as a kind of a precursor or a, something to look to see if other events are coming. Precursor event, if you will. Child in the Ukraine, or children, or school kids, etc. Kind of like the thing in Africa. Where's our 200 schoolgirls? And I don't know if I'm buying that 100%, by the way. I think there's... When you see these things perfectly timed like this, to take your focus off of something that's more important, like Ukraine, and then all school kids. Oh, these 200 school kids are taken by the group that Hillary Clinton and the executive branch as a whole tried to keep off the terror list over the last several months. Why are you going out of your way to try to keep this group off the terror list, and then allegedly that same terror group just took 200 schoolgirls? Is it fake news? Is it nonsense? My BS detector says yeah, but not 100% sure. It's hard to be sure on that. So they're saying in the WebBot report that there's another situation similar to that. Ukraine, children / school kids something, to which they are captured, and Russia comes in and rescues this child or children or school kids. It will be a huge PR deal when it happens, and will be very good looking for Russia. Some serious fighting should be taking place around the same time, that June-ish area. Large-scale violence in Ukraine, possibly missiles shooting rather than just gunshots and that occasional thing like that's happening now. It'll go to the next level kind of a thing. So this should be a trigger around that time of what he's calling karma. What goes around comes around. This ought to be around that time, the trigger of karma against the Zionist banker / CIA, etc. cabal takes place. The US dollar takes a big hit as a result of these things mentioned above. And he has what he's calling like a new potentiometer type of a thing that he's implementing within the WebBot data. And it's the way he described it, the easiest way for me to describe it, and it pretty much is like this. When you look at a stock chart, and let's say you're looking over a 6-month period of a stock of some company, and you see it just steadily, rising pretty much across the board. It's every month going up a little bit more, every week a little bit more. You could forecast by saying, okay, it's done that. It's been going straight, not straight up, but it's been going up for the last 6 months, and we've noticed fairly recently in the 6th month that it's really peaking up quicker. So you could make a very general guess and say it's probably going to go up even more next month, right? You could see that 6 months, here's the trend. Now the trend's going up even faster. What's the probability that the stock's going to do even better? Well, now the probability is even higher, because as the months go on, it climbs more and more and more, and sometimes it's climbing even higher at a higher rate than normal. Therefore, you make the guess that, okay, it's going to go higher next month, and that would be a pretty good educated guess. So That's what his potentiometer is doing, so to speak, with this WebBot data, and in particular some events or whatever, or an event. When he analyzes the number, say a month ago, and the number comes back as, say, 100, and then a month later the number comes up as 250, and then a month later it comes up as 400. Now he can say, okay, this particular data set, this particular event that we're talking about in this data set from the WebBot appears to be going to happen, and it's going to be like what we described, because those numbers in the potentiometer, if you will, are continually rising. Now, if they see where the number starts to fall, what he's saying is, well, then maybe that is countering what we think is going to happen. Therefore, it may not happen if the numbers reverse or start going down. It's something new. He's not sure how well it's going to work, but he's testing it. So he says the potentiometer is at 221, up from 153. It's this new tool he's talking about on basically what I've just described to you as some things to look out for in the near future, the next month and a half. That's his potentiometer. It was 153, now it's showing 221, so it's going up. The final thing, housing / real estate. Popping of the real estate bubble in the USA, the second bubble, which never made it near the first bubble of 2005, 2006, is coming soon. The popping of the bubble is coming soon. Positive language in the media turns to very negative language regarding housing and real estate and investing in real estate, the whole 9 yards. Shocking to the unaware sheeple of what happens in the housing market. Shocking to the unaware persons, also known as sheeple. It will be pretty intense even to those who are aware of the housing crisis, such as you and I. It will shift institutional buyers and bankers who are thinking of real estate in terms of their position, for example, thinking housing was a store of value. Their whole mindset of thinking that housing is a store of value, it's an investment. When this takes place, this popping of the bubble, it now brings that right back, and they have to question it. Is this really an investment? Was this really a store of value? Now, if the housing was going to go up, would you be thinking that? No, you would say, hey, it was a good idea. We knew it was all along, and here's the proof. Look at the housing's back up again. It's doing fantastic again. It cannot do fantastic again, and it won't do fantastic again. It is going to crash. And here's the other thing. If the crash happens, based off of that paragraph, I'm going to have to just guess at something and say this is why I think it's going to crash, possibly to, like it said, even the aware observer who knew these things is going to be shocked at how bad it bursts, etc. If that's the kind of statement coming out of this WebBot report, then I can safely guess and assume, and I've mentioned this before, that interest rates will have to rise fairly significantly, because the only way you can have a serious crash of something like that, because a house is the most expensive thing a person will buy in their lifetime, that's a true statistic, and because no one really buys them cash money, we all pretty much have to go get a mortgage for the most part. And it's from $100,000 to $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, depending on people, average American, what class you're in, you name it, whatever. $100,000 to $400,000 house. When you take that and you look at, let's just say you had $1,000 a month payment on a house, and that's just the mortgage. I'm not talking about escrow with taxes and insurance. Just your payment of your house, $1,000. That's probably a $200-something house. Just gonna guess right now. So that's also at 5%, let's say, okay? Let's just make it even. You got a $200,000 house, it's $1,000 payment you gotta come up with. That does include the interest, of course. But when you analyze the actual payment, it says, well, $300 of that is principal that you're paying back. And The other $700 is interest. So out of your monthly expense bill, that's the biggest expense you have. You are paying $700 a month in pure interest, going straight to the bank. The other $300, again, is principal, and the way it's put out, you gotta wait 30 years of doing that before you pay it off. Again, that's at 5% interest rate. What happens to that $200,000 house when interest rates go from 5 to 15 like that? Some people are gonna say, oh, I don't care, I'm locked in. I'm at 5% and I'm locked in, so what? You know what? You could say that. You could very well say that, and you could definitely say, so what? Doesn't affect me. I'm locked in for 30 years and interest rates just jumped to 15%, and now that $200,000 house is worth half. It's now worth $100,000 because that payment of $1,000 is still the same, because $1,000 with the $100,000 with the 15% interest rate, or $200,000 with the 5% interest rate, are both $1,000 a month. Now, don't do that math because I'm making this up in my head just for the example. But you get my point. The price of housing has to come down to meet the same payment that the person was able to afford, that $1,000 a month payment, etc. So, what happens when you have a $100,000 house that was at 5%, and then it goes to 15%? You have a house that dropped, again, same example, to $50,000. The house is the same. It looks the same. It's in the same neighborhood. Everything's the same except the price of the house all of a sudden. So if you had silver, when this kind of thing happens, silver and gold are going to be at the next level. And you can tell yourself, man, if I had 1,000 ounces of silver, if I just had 1,000 ounces of silver, all these years was able to save up 1,000, and the price of silver only went up to $100. It's the best it could do. We were all wrong. $100. That is $100,000. $100,000. Oh, I could buy that house for 50 and put it in one of my kids' names, or all of my kids' names, and I got another 50 grand. Maybe I ought to buy another house, put it in my kids' names also, and I could rent that one out. Of course, you got to find good people these days to rent those houses, and when you have a mortgage payment on a house you're trying to rent, you become desperate and you realize, I have to get, you know, my mortgage is $1,000 a month, so I've got to get rent in here for probably $1,100 a month. And then you find out, man, that's difficult. Okay, I'll take the 1,000. Finally got someone that's decent renting my house, $1,000 a month. So essentially you're not making any money, zero money. All you're doing is allowing them to pay your mortgage for you on that house for 30 years. Do you think anything's gonna go wrong in that house? Air conditioner's gonna go out, water heater's gonna go out, refrigerator, something's gonna happen. And you don't have any additional profit to fix that because they're just paying the mortgage payment for you. So you have to dig into your pocket to fix the house for the next 30 years while you rent it out. Because again, out of that money, you're getting $1,000, the bank's getting $700 for profit, interest, and then the $300 the bank gets for principal. So essentially what happens if you own your own house without a mortgage, without the bank getting their grimy hands on it, even that $50,000 house example that you just bought a second one of because you had some silver, you can still collect $1,000. Matter of fact, if things get rough, but you can find a good renter, how about $800 a month? Oh, they'll be lining up at your door. Where do I sign? I'll take it. And believe me, you'll be able to weed out a bunch of the no good renters, find the real good renters that just can't afford $1,000 a month, but can afford $800. And then now you got some good people living in your house, and the entire $800 a month, all of it, is yours. And it goes into a little separate bank account, savings account, whatever it is. Every month, 800, 800, 800, 800 for years, and then need a new air conditioner for $5 grand. Well, that's okay. I've been collecting rent for 5 years. I've got thousands and thousands in the bank. Here, go fix it. $5 grand. Here you go, AC guy. Take care of it. Thanks. Appreciate that. The problem is when you don't have that opportunity and you're stuck like everybody else. The other thing I want to talk about is those of you, or us, whatever, that have a fixed mortgage rate and say, well, I don't care if the price goes to 15% for interest rates because I'm locked in for 30 years and I've got another 15 years till I pay it off, so I don't care. You have to understand, what about everybody else? Life does not stop. People don't stop having kids. Kids don't stop growing up into becoming adults, getting married, having kids themselves, getting a house. That doesn't stop. No one puts that, you can't press pause on that. So everybody else in the economy, the world, the United States, whatever, is still having to buy a house. I got to do this, right? Nothing stops. So all of a sudden, this whole millions and millions and millions of people who are doing what we all did, we grow up, we go get a house, right? Get a job. They got to go get a house. That's not going to stop. So, what can I afford, Mr. Banker? You can only afford $1,000 a month. Okay, so what does that equate to in a house price nowadays? What's interest rates? Oh, if it's 15%, the best rate we can do right now is 15%. Oh. So, what kind of house? About $50,000, maybe $60,000 you could get a house. And at first, you're going to be like, people are going to think, what the hell, am I moving to the ghetto? What do you mean $50,000, $60,000? So immediately, there may be a little bit of a lag, because the people who say, I'm not accepting $60,000 for my house, I paid $180 for it, a few years ago, and I owe $140 on it right now, or $120, let's say $120 on it. I've been paying extra payments. I owe $120 on it, and I've been doubling the payments periodically. You're telling me now I've got to take half of that and take 60 grand for my house? No. And then reality is going to punch them in the face. You don't have a choice, because everywhere else around you, foreclosure, 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 the banks own them anyways. They have to sell them for what the market says, and the market says 15% interest rate. Your whole neighborhood, $50,000 for that house, $60,000 for that house, $55,000 for that house, and you want $120,000 for your house. Let me know how that works out for you. Sold for 55, sold for 50, still on the market for 60, but they're negotiating, etc. While you sit back at 160 and say, I'll just ride this out. Good luck with that. Again, the banks that have the massive amounts of foreclosures just sitting there on the books, waiting, no one's moved in yet. When this kind of thing happens, they dictate the price. They set the price, because you as a homeowner, at whatever price you're locked in at right now, whatever you owe on that mortgage, cannot compete with a bank that has foreclosures, because they can sell the house for as little as they need to get it off their hands and start getting that residual mortgage, etc., money back into that house. Sell the house, offer a mortgage. Yeah, it was $60,000, but in 30 years, they will get triple their money back, $180,000. They don't care that they sold it for 60. You, on the other hand, who bought it for 180 at one point, now is at 120,000 for it, can't sell it. You just stay in there for years and years and years, let's say, and you fight it. And I'm going to keep that house. And finally, years and years and years later, you're down to $60,000. But that's where housing's pretty much petered off at. Maybe it's at $70,000. You sell the house, you walk away with 10 grand. That's what I call a bozo. What I call the smart person is the one who saw that coming and said, hey, banks, the hell with you. I see what you've done. I know what you're doing. I know what your plans are. I'm walking from my mortgage now well in advance, and then I will stay here and fight you and fight you and fight you. And when you win in court, I will file an appeal, and then we'll do it all over again another 2 or 3 years. And then when that goes through in your favor, I'll file another appeal, and I'll be in this house for years and years and years without sending you a freaking dime, and taking the money and buying silver and other assets, so that when this day comes, I'm protected, and my family under me is protected. Because in my opinion, it is the man's job to take care of his family, monetarily, etc. And if I see this stuff on the writing on the wall, and I see that pretty much there are no savers in America, the stats show barely anybody is a saver nowadays. What is my advice? The banks cause the problem. They're ruining your investment. They're destroying your housing. They're out here raping and pillaging with no oversight. The bankers are running themselves right into the Security Exchange position. They're running themselves in the CFTC. They're putting themselves in the Treasury position. They have taken over. So this is fight against you. Therefore, you have the right to defend yourself. And by defending yourself, you can quit paying your mortgage and fight it and fight it and fight it. Why did all these banks have to pay $50 billion to settle mortgage fraud and all kinds of other problems if everything's just fine and you owe that debt, so to speak? Why did that happen? Why can't they produce the note? Why can't these banks, the most expensive thing, the most highest priority asset they have is a house, mortgage they've given someone, can't find the note, don't know who owns the note, not sure. Well, it was an investment group, it was cut into pieces, and then we split it out and sold it off, and we don't know who the owners are. Really? Because you've sold it, resold it, and triple sold it maybe to groups of different people, so you can double dip and triple dip that profit? Maybe that's why you can't find it? But the average American is so stupid, so dumbed down, so uninformed, they don't know this. So when you tell them, I quit paying my mortgage on purpose because I saw all these things, and I try to explain it to them, they look at you like, oh, you're evil. You owe that debt. You can't, what are you doing? Because they are uninformed. That's why. But they're going to be real informed when this next housing bubble crashes and collapses on them and they have nothing left, and they say, this whole time, I lost my house anyways. After all this, I lost my house anyways, and I've been paying this mortgage for 12 years. I don't get a penny of it back. And the statistics show me that in 3 more years, the bank will have had its money paid back in full. But not the mortgage note paid off in full. That's because the interest and all that has paid it off in 15 years easily. The next 15 years of that mortgage, the 30-year mortgage, the next 15 years is pure profit for the bank. But you still have to pay it because that was a 30-year agreement. So even if at 20 years into it, they've now received 5 additional years of bonus interest payment money, you lose your job, housing crash, whatever, lose your house, they get the house back. Even though you have 10 years to pay, and it's been paid off, the money they gave you, you've given back, plus 5 years of interest on it, pure payments. That doesn't matter, because we had an agreement that says for 30 years you had to do this, not just for 5, 10, or 15, or 20 years. It's got to be for 30 years. And then you'd think to yourself, well, what are the chances of some kind of economic problems that affect a lot of people in this country happening in 5 years, every 5 years? Well, not likely. Every 10 years, still not likely. But in a 30-year time span, it becomes likely. You could literally be on the 29th year of paying that house. And again, it was paid off in 15 years, technically. But the interest payments, all that has to go for 30 years. You got 1 year left. You owe a few thousand, several $1,000s. Lose your job, bad times. Sorry about that. The bank is not going to be lenient because the bank says, oh my God, we've had 29 years of payment. The guy paid his house off in 12 years as far as the loan goes. We've had nothing but interest payments ever since the 12th year. We're now in the 29th year. So this is a great customer. Oh, we love this guy. And he fell behind on his mortgage. We can now foreclose on him. He's got a year left. Doesn't matter. The agreement was 30 years. Now we can sell the house for today's full market price. So he's paid us back the $120,000 in full 12 years ago, or on the 12th year. So from the 12th year to the 29th year, we've just been getting that payment. It's all pure interest. We collected it all. Bonus, 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 bonus money for the bank. Now the 29th year is here. The guy's got 1 year left and fell in hard times because of stuff we as the banks did on purpose, by the way. But they don't know that. And we just foreclosed, and now we've got it still values the same, $120,000 house that we can now sell for $110 or $15 if we want to sell it quickly and pocket that additional immense amount of money. While the poor sap who was in that house in his 29th year, who said life wasn't fair? Go get another job, go get another mortgage when your credit gets better, and try again, sucker. Do you think I feel bad even measurable, an immeasurable amount, when I tell people I do not and have not paid my mortgage in years, and I'm currently fighting it with the lawyer, and as we've done the process and discovered documents that they don't have, that they wish they had, that they should have had, as I said would happen before I even decided not to pay the mortgage, I knew this would happen. Do you think I feel bad even a tiny bit? Knowing what these banks have done to everybody, knowing that they additionally, what they've done to anybody, ruining your house, ruining your investment, ruining your nest egg. and then getting bailed out to the tunes of trillions between all the banks, which basically made them whole again, but you still got to keep making that payment to them. They've gotten the money back through the Federal Reserve already. And not only that, they get additional money at 0% interest to then loan out to you at 5 or 6 or whatever percent interest. So they get it at near zero, free money, as much as they want, lend out as much as you want, and charge whatever interest rate you want, 4, 5, 6, 7%. Have at it. Who in the hell is running this country? And is this a country for and by the people, or for and against the people? Not for, but against the people. You have a right to defend yourself from any type of action, whether it's a physical assault, whether it's a financial assault, whether it's someone yelling at you. You have a right to defend yourself in the opposite way. Jason at 4 has been doing so for the last several years, and I buy silver with my additional cash because I know what's coming. I know what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen with the US dollar, and I'm preparing for this to save my family's financial lives when this happens. And it's not going to be too much longer. You can really see the writing on the wall nowadays, how things are just not going as planned for the powers that be. One thing after another, not looking good. So, if you don't have precious metals, you are, in my opinion, out of your freaking mind. Take care.